So I think we are ready to start, right? Give us a yeah, nice, nice.
Come closer.
Yeah,
We
come
have-
closer. Maybe also in the.
Don't be shy.
Yeah, unfortunately we don't have a big screen, but we are DIY, so I think it's completely fine. We both would like to welcome everyone to our first MUCHA panel talk. My name is Benny. This is Elba. And we have the honor to guide you through this program today. Since we are part of Tag der Clubkultur and just won the award for the best newcomer club, maybe Jess can say something later to this. This year's festival of Clubcommission Berlin, the motto of this is Bridging Realities, 35 years of movement. 35 years after German reunification, we sit here and we look back at a turning point for Berlin's club culture and also ahead. Club culture has always been a bridge between generations, between scenes, between different realities. And the center today is DIY club culture. After the fall of the wall, it gave birth to a free, wide scene that influenced the world. But today it's in danger. It faces pressure from capitalism, gentrification, and bureaucracy. So the central question why we are here now is, and what we want to explore together, is there still real DIY club culture in Berlin? Or has it already been taken over by capitalism?
Yeah, so I'm gonna be co-moderating with Benny after the sound gets a little bit fixed. So we prepared the discussion. We're gonna lead it. We're on for an hour and a half approximately. There's some time planned for you for questions at the end, so no worries. You can also participate. And yeah, welcome. And we're do
Yeah, hand over a bit to Jess because, as I mentioned already, we won the prize for the best newcomer club the other day. So, Jess, would you say something to this? And maybe can we have a little applause for that?
Can I try yours? Yeah, this is teamwork makes the dream work, right? Hello, everybody. Welcome to our space. For all who haven't been here, we are MUCHA, and we moved last year into this beautiful space organized by the bigger association Diskobabel. Make some noise for Diskobabel and also our visitors there who are supporting us as our big mommy. So, yeah, making this possible. So, yeah, we won the prize for the best newcomer club. And actually, we didn't expect it, honestly, because, you know,
come on.
when you look at clubs, they're like kind of high polished, especially new clubs. They put a lot of investments into the new clubs. And this prize also marks that even DIY has a relevance, that DIY in their aesthetics, in the way of organizing, in the way of community work has a relevance, and that we won this title, and we are so proud of this. And this is not only my work, this is the work of many individuals in our collectives, from the sound to the video to the bar to the crew management to the panelists, organizers, to the runners. Like, yeah, we were working hard since last year. We got the chance and the opportunity, and basically, yeah, you know, we wanted to have a space, and we're like, yeah, we can make it work, we can do events. And then we ended up in being construction work managers, event managers, social media managers, comedians. Yeah, so a lot of qualification raised up with this new task.
Who is the comedian?
That's the big question.
We can figure it out the next 1.5 hours. So before we start, we would like to give a small introduction of our guest, and I would start with our first panelist. He is a Canadian urban sociologist. I have always problems with this. Don't take it personal. He's a director of the Academy of Subcultural Understanding, founded by the Trezor Foundation in 2023, to support new subcultural spaces, especially in smaller cities. His work bridges research on cities and housing with the realities of club culture. Welcome, Martin Fuller. And we go to the next one. Born and raised in the south of Portugal, Marum had their first club experience there before moving to Lisbon, where they started organizing parties and building community projects. Later they come to Berlin, expanding their hybrid practice between music, queer rave culture and collective care. Today Marum is known for projects like Mina and Planeta Manas and for the unique approach to sound as both artistic expression and community practice. Welcome to the panel.
Thank you so much.
Then we welcome Dougal Sheridan. Dougal, you were born in 1971 in Melbourne. You are an architect, the founder of Lid Institute, and you wrote a very interesting piece called The Space of Subculture in the City, getting specific about Berlin's indeterminate territories. We're going to come to that later in the discussion. This was drawn from your time as a squatter in Berlin Mitte from 94 to 96, and that you later reworked and republished in 2007. Thank you for being here. To my left, I have the honor to introduce Gloria Viagra, probably one of the most iconic figures of the nightlife in Berlin. You are a DJ, a drag queen, a singer, a host, a political activist. You basically grew up in West Berlin. You lived through a lot of decades, sorry to say it like this.
You're not old.
And you're the wise old person in this panel. You can teach us, kids, how we do it. Thank you very much for being here.
Then we have, actually we heard her already. She is a queer Syrian-Italian community organizer, DJ and awareness professional based in Berlin. With a background in NGOs and years of event organizing, she focuses on creating safer and more inclusive spaces in nightlife. She's co-founder of MUCHA, a Berlin collective that combines cultural work with political education and community care. Welcome here, Jess Minute.
And the last speaker planned had to cancel today because of sickness. The winter is coming, so one person has fallen already. It's a shame. It's a friend of mine, but he's not here today. So let's move to the discussion then. But first, I started a little bit of input. I prepared a little input for you to jog your memories and also teach you kids about history. So I wanted to go through the histories and especially how has the club culture evolved. We also picked the 80s as a starting point of this historical overview. Of course, clubs didn't start in the 80s. Berlin has a very long party tradition. Maybe it could be a topic of a next panel talk. Even in the 20s, Berlin was already known to be wide. Yeah, but I'm gonna start with the 80s. I'm talking mostly about West Berlin. Actually, I could have introduced East Berlin. Sorry, I forgot. Sorry, the ex-East Germans, if they are
It's
here.
okay. It's okay.
Yeah, so the West Berlin was a special city to live in before the Mauerfall because it was very isolated. It was in the middle of East Germany, and the city was not so alive. It had to be very subsidized by the government so that people stayed here. But at the same time, it was also West Berlin not so big. Actually, East Berlin was bigger, or as pretty big in terms of surface. But West Berlin was also at the time already a place where weirdos, all types of people would come, especially because there was an exemption of military service in Berlin, and it was a policy from the government to make people come to West Berlin and maintain Berlin as a capital, even if it was stuck in the middle of East Germany. Yeah, we can talk about Kreuzberg maybe with Gloria later. I know you have some stuff to do about it. Yeah, on this map you can see that the blue line is the wall. Kreuzberg was stuck to this wall, and this was the alternative neighborhoods where most subcultural things were happening, but it was also a small territory and quite packed. Then you know what happened. The Mauer fell. There was suddenly a lot of spaces to explore, abandoned places to occupy. So alternative spaces and clubs emerge everywhere, mostly in the ex-East Berlin. This picture taken from the work of Doug is a pretty famous postcard. It is Tacheles, a squad from the 90s that became very popular and even a tourist hotspot actually. And then over the decades, so this is also my analysis. You don't have to agree with it. We can discuss that also. But in the 2000s, 2010, the scene, the party scene, the club scene started to commercialize, professionalize. Yeah, so it was a process. An industry was born, I guess. Yeah. Then we wanted to mention 2020 as turning point for club spaces because the pandemic had obviously closed all those spaces, but also had a really lasting impact even after it reopens. Yeah, and nowadays the DIY is still alive. Diskobabel is a wonderful example for that, as you can see, but it's in danger. Those spaces are getting rarer and rarer. The pressure gets bigger everywhere in the city. This year, a lot of clubs had or are gonna close down. Watergate, Renate Menschmeyer a few years ago, and so many more. So yeah, this is what we face today.
You want a Menti? Or shall we skip the Menti? We have not so much time.
We can. They can. So we. Let's move to the first topic. We wanted to discuss with the panelists what do we actually understand with DIY club culture. You can also participate if you want. There's a Menti for that. You just need a phone. You can type menti.com in your browser and then type this code, and then you can enter keywords. What is the first thing you think about when you hear DIY club culture? You don't have to be an expert. Just write what comes in your mind, and we will take a look at the results later. Okay?
Yes. So I think we start with the first question, and with the what Elva just said, we want to give like a little bit more like definition what DIY club culture is actually meaning. And I would like to go to Marum and ask you the first question. When you think about DIY club culture, is it more about a physical space or is it more about the community spirit?
I guess I would say it's both. In my case, for example, I can start by telling a story. So I've been living in Berlin for the past almost 9 years. And I moved here because somehow I got the possibility to grow my career as a DJ. I got lucky because I was running like a DIY party in Portugal. And Portugal was going through a phase of heavily gentrification, but also a lot of like attention. There was a lot of eyes into what was happening in Lisbon. And I guess I managed to catapult into the more commercial scene. I kind of used that privilege to play in bigger clubs, more commercialized clubs, to keep somehow like my connection with Lisbon, and I kept going to Lisbon. And it was during the pandemic that this collective that I'm part of, we had the opportunity to start a club space. And this club space, I think the physicality is quite important in the sense that this is a space where people meet up, more than just like a space where people party and dance. It is a space where people see each other, where they seek for resources, they look after each other. And over the past 4 years, we've been running like this club space. And we just kind of like took over a factory. We built the club on our own. We've been building like the sound system step by step. And it was all about like kind of rethinking club from our own like perspective. We didn't hire like big teams, people that are used to work in clubs. We've done it our way. We kind of like have friends who know how like to kind of like deal with electronics. They've built the lights. Someone who likes to code, they've built the software to kind of like change the lights. We wanted to have also a different approach regarding substance consumption. We worked with a lot of people in our scene that are like doctors, nurses, chemists, harm reduction experts, and all of this like way of doing a space of our own created, I guess, what we would call like a DIY club. I think DIY can become a bit of an aesthetics. A lot of clubs in Berlin have that aesthetics, but maybe they've become professionalized. But yeah, for me, it's about kind of like making do with what you have. And ultimately, it comes out of like an urgency to serve a community and the current necessities of that community.
How long this space was open? What you just mentioned?
So we opened just in 2021, just at the end of 2021. So there was still like the end of the pandemic, and I guess that I mean we didn't have like the Mauerfall. What we had was the pandemic, and that resulted in a gigantic decrease of rents. So we wanted to throw a party, and we managed to find like a factory that was kind of being decommissioned. We just wanted to throw one party. We rented the space, and we ended up like in that space for 4 years.
And what were the biggest obstacles you were facing?
I guess like because I think like when you don't work with people that are used to run a club, you kind of have to reinvent the wheel. Sometimes maybe that was a bit of an obstacle that we could have like countered, maybe by like working with people that have worked in other clubs. But again, like that is often something that requires money. We were really just kind of running events to run this space, and then like I think like running nights every week with like a small team when like no one makes money out of it. Yeah, you need to live like a double life. Like you work a full-time job, maybe like even more, and then you run a club night on the weekend, and you're kind of like learning with your mistakes. And then, given that you're not subventioned by the government or by the city, you're operating a bit at the margins, and I guess we were doing these in the margins of the city, So no one really knew we were there. The address was not well known. But as people started to know of the space, it started attracting a lot of attention. Eventually, you start having a bunch of like party goers that didn't know what they were going for. This requires like a stronger door policy, more work, maybe like some conflicts, people that don't know how to be in the space. And then eventually we started having like police raids, like really violent police raids. Even though we were operating everything legally as a cultural association, yeah, I guess if you don't have the blessing of the city, you're going to be seen as somehow a disrupting, project.
Before, when we spoke before, you were talking also about like police raids with machine guns. So how we can imagine this picture? So you had like a party, and suddenly like a bunch of police cops came inside with machine guns.
Yeah. I think it was quite brutal. Oftentimes people are quite surprised because, I mean, in the context of Portugal, I guess a bit like here, like it is quite a liberal politics. And in Portugal, people often thought it was about drugs. That's why we were getting like police. But luckily in Portugal, all consumption of substances, all substances have been decriminalized, meaning that consuming any kind of substance is not a crime. But what we found is just like oftentimes for the police, that's not really what matters. The police often is not enforcing the law. They're enforcing certain morals, and what we are seeing not only in Portugal but everywhere is kind of a shift of the politics towards the right. They would invade this space mostly because it's a space where we would talk openly about substance, where we would talk about harm reduction, where we would work with a lot of people that maybe they're like sorting out their visas or their papers, working with a lot of like queer people, trans people, migrants. So of course this is the perfect playground for young cops to flex their muscles. So they enter the space with balaclavas, machine guns, completely disproportionate kind of violence. And I guess if you don't have somehow a city that is somehow understanding of these fragilities, you are just a pawn, in the hands of a violent structure.
Maybe, what do you think, Jazz? What is DIY? I saw you reacting a little bit to what Maroon said about the double life of working two jobs. I think that resonates very, very, very much with all the members of MUCHA. And yeah, what is DIY? What comes with it?
Hello, can you hear me? Test. Thank you for giving me a voice. So yeah, actually DIY, you named it so beautiful, is reasoning in the necessity of having a safer space for individual communities, a meeting point, a chosen family, and also a lot of struggles to combine your collective community life with also the regular work, your regular tasks, daily to-dos, also facing most of the communities facing repressions, and dealing with all of these individual obstacles at one time, but also having this kind of big authenticity, like people are coming to the space because of you, because of the vibe, because of the community, because that you maybe also don't take yourself too serious, where at one point when you grow as a DIY collective, and I saw it at a lot of collectives, you have kind of a pain of grow, because then you have to decide about finances against community spirit. When you have to capitalize at one point, or when you do this actually, you have to decide about different important topics. And when I look at a mostly public organized nightlife or club, there you have this strong hierarchies, and you can also excuse maybe unmoral decisions over these positions, you know, like because you have to run the space, you have the finances, you have so kind of partly to take care of your workers. Yeah, you do have, but it's still a job. Coming to DIY, there's also the expectation, which is also has a totally right to exist. The expectation that we care for each other, and to balance these kind of tasks and these challenges at one time, keeping the spirit alive, and don't forget where you are coming from, don't forget your roots. This is for me DIY. And the look, yeah, I mean, it depends on the collective and their style, I would say. I would say nowadays there are also a lot of DIY collectives which had a really kind of polished style, which I really like. So yeah, for me it's more the community spirit over capitalism.
I would like to go back to what Marum actually just said. You were talking about police raids, and so I would like to bring you inside of the panel talk, Gloria. Do you think DIY club culture is also like a political statement? You do activism since years. So do you think it's also should be a statement for a political statement?
So I talk in German, if it's okay, yeah. My English is leider a little bit shitty. It's really...
We can translate then.
Jesus, if it's...
Soll ich auf Deutsch mal fragen?
Na, ob es politisch ist.
Glaubst du, dass es auch ein politisches Statement sozusagen ist?
Well, depends of the... Es hängt vom Kollektiv natürlich ab, aber natürlich ist es ein politisches Statement, finde ich. Also gerade auch, also ich kenne es zum Beispiel von früher gar nicht, dieses Kollektiv oder sowas. Das kenne ich erst aus den letzten Jahren. Und also Kollektiv kenne ich nur von früher, von den Hausbesetzerzeiten, also so aus unseren politischen Zeiten, aber nicht im Zusammenhang mit Clubkultur. Und insofern, da war es immer was selbstverständlich, also war es auch immer in den politischen Zusammenhängen. Kollektiv war für mich immer in den politischen Zusammenhängen. Das kannst du überhaupt nicht trennen. Und also ist mir nur so aufgefallen, weil ich so nachgedacht habe, weil früher Kollektiv war auch immer sich selber aufrauchen. So ein bisschen, also sich wirklich immer, meistens sind es auch immer die gleichen, die ganz viel machen und so weiter und sowas. Und ich habe das Gefühl, Kollektiv heute bedeutet tatsächlich auch was anderes. Also es ist wirklich ein anderer Grundwert, es ist eine andere Gemeinsamkeit, es ist eine andere Awareness, aufeinander zu achten. Und aber um auf deine Frage zurückzukommen, ja, Kollektiv für mich ist partout politisch, also so da, wo ich herkomme, ist es partout politisch. Right?
I agree.
Jetzt phrasierst du es.
Soll ich das nochmal zusammenfassen? So Gloria said that collective work is always a political statement, and back in times when there's squatted houses, it was for sure more a political message. Actually, what is a new thing for her? She said that in club culture is political, right? This is what you said.
No, but I said like in back in times, it always was in a political movement. I didn't know collective as a part of a club culture, so as since some years ago. And was habe ich noch gesagt?
That back in the days, collectives was also about getting wasted on your own. Kind of.
Like back in times, there were always the same people, and you've been always given it all. So it was kind of a self-exploring. And I think nowadays, the meaning of a collective is really some different in terms of you take care of each other. You have a different awareness. So it has really become a different meaning. Since in my times.
But your English is really good. I think we can go on with that if you want.
We can try.
Okay,
we can try.
Let's try it. So we would like to, Elva would go on with a bit more
Yeah, I have a question for Dog, because we just mentioned squats. You lived that. Yeah, what comes to your mind? Obviously, so the paper that I mentioned was a case study about a squat that you lived in, where the space was organized also in a very different way. Yeah, what can you say about that, or
Yes, I guess. I mean, obviously, the '90s were a amazing time to live in Berlin, and and I was lucky enough to be immersed in the squat scene at that time. So, and that was out of necessity because I needed somewhere to live, and I was studying architecture here at the time, and I was absolutely fascinated by it because you had amazing opportunity. People had amazing opportunities to reclaim the city and shape their own spaces and live the way they wanted to. And that's, like Gloria mentioned, this political idea was very strong in the Hausbesetzer movement. It was also about, I mean, before that, it was about kind of urban regeneration and people taking back control of the city and making the city the way they wanted it to be. So the history of the squatted scene in Berlin is very much one that is interwoven with club culture also. I mean, they run parallel to one another in many ways, and particularly in the aspect of DIY, the opportunity to find empty spaces, or, you know, DIY in the sense of a space of freedom was what it was. And there was so much empty space in Berlin and opportunities to take to appropriate those spaces. And the extraordinary thing I found was the relationship between the opportunities of the spaces and what people did with them. So you had these two things coming together. You had freedom, i.e. an empty space, but there was also freedom in that these were spaces that weren't controlled in the way, you know, they weren't owned necessarily, clear ownership, but it was a power vacuum also. So in that moment, the spaces affected people and people affected the spaces, and that created culture. You had this kind of, it was like settling a new landscape of ruins and making what you wanted out of it. It was quite extraordinary. So, and then within that, club culture was interwoven, but it wasn't, and I mean, things, we were talking about that earlier, the way things are communicated now is very different from then. At that time, there were no telephones, like, people didn't even have landlines. Everything was by word of mouth, at the most a microflyer or something like that. So it was self-selecting. You knew where to go to a party or go to an event or where something happened. And so there are no Toursteher or no administration and organization that you get now, because these things self-regulated, if you like. And that's completely understandable that was possible then, and we're in a very different kind of environment now. But the question I find interesting is to ask the same question, is where you find free spaces. Now, they're not going to be in the same locations they were in Berlin in the 90s, but they are still going to be there somewhere. And then how do you appropriate those? Yeah.
I would like to bring Martin inside the discussion, maybe as a roundup from your perspective. You heard now different angles. We talked about space, politics, and activism. From your perspective, how would you sum up what DIY club culture really means?
What it really means? Like, I get that.
What it really means. Give us the final answer for that.
I mean, Martin also sent us a text about that. I have it on the presentation.
Yeah, that's.
I mean,
good.
you can talk, of course, but just.
Yeah, maybe pull it up and then I can talk over it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's longer than this, isn't it? But
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I was just asked to kind of think about a definition as a sociologist, and maybe there's like a kind of a more poetic definition than a more kind of like boring, dry definition. I think it's really about people wanting to shape the kind of music experiences they have and the kind of community experiences they have like in space. I think that's basically what DIY club culture is. And I mean, you could also think like if you have to define it, it's something can be more or less DIY. It's not like something is or isn't. I think there's degrees. There's a really great book by Eric Olin Wright about, it's called How to Be an Anti-Capitalist in the 21st Century, and he writes about that there's like degrees of, you know, anarchist organization, socialist values, capitalism, and it's these different degrees that we have in a society. So just to try to focus on the things that you cherish and not to think about the one system as being totalizing. And I think that I'm selling this book horribly, sorry. But I think with DIY, it's the same thing. It's like there's a certain degree of DIY-ness that is in a lot of clubs, and then others have more DIY. So it's kind of a bundle of different characteristics. We talked about this. It's like you need something for your community, for your people, and you do it, and no one else is doing it, so you have to do it, right? And then you like have all these different jobs you have to do. So usually like you don't have this like role organigram where you say like this is exactly what these people do and you don't overlap with other people. Usually there's not like a financial backer. Usually there's like some political like, you know, reason why you're doing, or maybe politics that you share with your friends, and often DIY club culture is also about friendship too. And so it's really about making things possible that other people won't make happen, and if you don't do it, no one else will. And so I mentioned a few things like this. Yeah, it's like about if you have lots of people who are only consuming the event, the thing, then DIY club culture dies. It needs people also participating and making it. And yeah, it's about like tending to, caring for, making more of the things that you love. And if you do that, like then of course it's never going to die. It's as long as people are taking that care. And yeah, I think like having maybe a better phrasing would have been something like if you have a fantasy, try to just actualize that, make that happen. And so I think that's what the DIY club culture does. And also it's about like encouraging and sharing those people who are sort of along your journey somewhere, and maybe they have a different space, but it's about seeing mutual ways of caring for each other, encouraging each other. And I think like that's every good thing in the world starts like that. Like so, like you know, it's not just club culture, but anything that's good happens because people like think that maybe like someone needs to make it, you know, out of nothing. And that's maybe why DIY club culture is also such a good example of, you know, how we might want to build, you know, the city, build the future. It's kind of can be, you know, modeled, upscaled, if you want to phrase it like that.
Yeah, thank you so much for this text. I asked Martin to not be too jargony. I was a bit mean to the academic that Martin is. I was saying, oh, please, not too academic. And you wrote this, you said it's a very poetic text. I really love it. I think I was really happy to hear elements of your definition already from the first like people talking. Yeah, so thank you for that. And maybe I take the occasion now to tell a little bit about the work of the Academy for Subcultural Understanding, because it was, or should you? I can summarize and maybe you can.
You check on the time a bit.
Then you don't have the word. I just say quick what it is about.
Few words.
This academy is made to support young people to create their own subcultural spaces, primarily in smaller cities, so not Berlin, not metropoles. You started 1 or 2 years ago with one program where you or you taught all the tips to run successfully a subcultural space to many young people of Germany from smaller cities. This foundation and this work is carried, or the vision comes from Dimitri Hegemann, the founder of Tresor, and you announced a new program that is starting very soon.
Deadline's on Monday if you want to apply. But mostly for people. It's mostly for people outside of Berlin. Sorry, I will stop talking.
Yeah, and I think you also already announced for next year international program, so for people to apply from outside Germany, which is really really cool. I think like to this will of like spreading DIY spirits everywhere and not only in big cities. Okay.
Sorry. I have to check the time because I see that we are coming closer to the halftime already. And we just have the first third is done. So we would like to go on with the second chapter of our panel talk. I wait for the S-Bahn. Wait. No, it's better.
What a movement.
What a movement. Okay. Shall I go on? You want to go on or shall I go? I can do. Gloria, you were talking a lot about house squatting, we talked about political message. Today, club culture is also recognized as cultural institution. How do you think that vibe changed on the dance floor when you compare it to the 90s?
Lord. I was just thinking before when you were talking about this DIY. And I think the DIY back in the 80s and 90s for me were always involved with the political movement. Like we had this big movement of squatters. We had this big movement and nowadays I think we don't have these movements anymore. It's very splitted. It's very sometimes something actually comes up and blah blah blah, but it's not a movement which lasts at least some years or some das ist was war die Frage nochmal?
How the vibe changed on the dance floor between the
vibe
not
changed
only on the dance floor.
No, that's the thing,
Take that as a
because
simple
I
dance floor.
only can talk about my perspective, and so I've always been involved in this political movements and stuff. And so we had, for example, with the squatters, we always had the Kiez disco. So that was like people, from the movement, we've been together fighting on the streets, we've been together fighting, I don't know where. So, and then even in the night dancing. So, and for me, the different for nowadays is like there are collectives and stuff, but it's not so, well, we don't have this big political movement anymore. So, and it's more individual.
But that's a really nice question. I would like to hand over to Marum and also to Jazz and maybe also to our researchers here. What do you think about that? We don't have that one movement where we can unify us under that, so that's why it's more splitted. What actually Gloria said. Would you agree with that?
I feel like it's definitely dwindling in a lot of the clubs. I feel like during the pandemic there was somehow a revitalizing sense of collectivity. Everyone was stuck in the city and people were like organizing around, like, I guess protests were like the new parties, or could be parties with like speakers at the same time. And in that moment I felt somehow there was like a bit of like somehow a renaissance of that feeling in the city. But yeah, like the fact that the nightlife has become so institutionalized and heavily funded also comes with like the poor sides, that you have a lot of like techno-tourism, people that come and see clubs as consumers. Like, so people are less friendly, they see themselves as consumers that have rights, and they go there to demand. Maybe they're not friendly to the one right next. There's not this spirit that everyone in the club is my friend, even if I don't know them. And I think, yeah, if there is a movement that is unionizing clubbers at the moment, I would say maybe like the pro-Palestine movement, but I don't see it often somehow bleeding into the clubs so much in Germany. I feel it maybe some smaller parties are organizing a bunch of like fundraisers and also elevating a bunch of artists, and I think that feels quite relevant. I don't know. What do you think, Jess?
I'm mostly agreeing with you. So I think that we should learn from our enemies. So what I mean by this, when we have a look on wide ideologies, on the right-wing parties, what they are doing, they are networking, they are connecting with each other, even when they are not agreeing with each other, when they are hating on each other, they are still working together with each other. In this sense, we have to do the same, because even before the pro-Palestine movement, there were also, especially in the leftist bubble, especially with the leftist academics, kind of, a split, because of differences in opinions. And I can agree and understand that, but right now we have to see what do we want to achieve and how we can work on things together, and that we kind of agree and disagreement for the sense of the community and for the sense of social justice.
I would like to hand this question over to our researchers. Why is that? Would you agree that we miss like one political movement where we can unify us, and that's why maybe the club culture or the club scene seems to be more fragmented? Would you agree with this, Martin? And why?
Yeah, I think that like this narrative that we had some unified, like political impetus in the past. I mean, I think that feels like that's being implied. It's like maybe not true. Like, and also there was like there's not some. I think we shouldn't compare this to some glorified past. If that's the goal, this should be something that we work towards. Like, but I don't think that in the 90s there was like a round circle of people coming together and being like, oh, this is the fight we're fighting for. They actually didn't have to fight for as much. Now there's just more. There's not more at stake, but it's just harder to like actualize what you want to do as a club in club culture with your community. It's just harder to find space, and so I think then it feels like there's something that you're competing with other people, like a limited resource, and that causes us to think in terms of like a zero-sum game where we're competing against our colleagues, potential friends, for the same material goods. And I think that's maybe a trap that is not going to help anyone. And to a certain extent, it is true there's limited space and limited resources. But I think that I also think things like the, oh God, I don't want to like talk too much about something like this, but like the Club Commission, they united clubs when they first started. Clubs were not united before that. They didn't want to talk to each other, So there are sort of these things that have happened, and I think this idea that there's a lot of fragmentation, I think it's a perspective, and it may or may not be actually true compared to the past, but I think that if we don't want that, then there's something we have to work on, right?
So
that we
it's
maybe
more romantic. I have more a romantic picture of the 90s than probably.
Yeah, I mean, of course, everyone was friends, like, this early 90s, but then not always. People also splintered too back then. As far as the books that I read, I wasn't there, so I don't know.
Yeah, I support very much that. I'm stepping out of the moderator's role. Sorry to give my perspective also, but I totally think that it's a myth that people, when you hear the boomers talking about techno, I don't mean any of you here, they always say, oh, it was so good back in the days, we were so united, peace and love, blah, blah, blah. And that's so fucking bullshit, because, like, maybe they thought they took ecstasy and they thought everything was fine, but the society was, sorry, it's really my opinion, I'm getting mad now, but, like, the society was still, like, shit, there were all the violence. I had to think of my friend Heiko also, that couldn't be here today, that told me on the phone when we prepared the talk that so he raved a lot in the 90s. He stopped. He always tells I partied the whole 90s, and then my daughter was born in 1999, and then I stopped. And he still goes to Fusion every year, volunteers there, so still is a part of the DIY scene. and she told me on the phone that the way we party today is actually, in his opinion, better than before because we have awareness, because we maybe think more about it also and how to do things right, at least in the DIY scene. And yeah, but I
So, but this is a really interesting question because you said we have awareness and we were not having it in the 90s. So do you think it's like really a gain today to have awareness, to have the awareness structures? We can also maybe talk with Jess about this and also with Marum. That this is a big plus than compared to the 90s where you don't have this or had this.
I mean, I don't know. I guess I wouldn't say no one did awareness in the 90s, but I think it was less.
Gloria, what do you think about? I mean, that would be interesting to know. Was there awareness in the 90s? How was this? So if somebody was like having like a took a wrong pill.
We haven't been at this.
I'm not a comedian.
We haven't been
Hey,
at
do
this
you need
point,
anything?
but of course we had awareness. We had awareness, but in a different time. We've been in a different step. We've been like way back. I mean, we are talking about the 80s, 90s, and there were still other fights for us. We still had to fight for other rights. We still have to fight for other spaces and stuff. So the fights were different. So, but I think we had awareness, and we had in our sense at this time. But regarding for today, I would say, yeah, it's different. Of course it's different, but because we made the way. Hello.
Would you say in queer spaces mostly, or more generally, like in parties, it was already there?
Hard to say. I mean, mostly I talk about queer spaces, but for example, after I worked in SO36 and then Wednesdays, Hungry Hearts, blah, 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 and then afterwards you went to Tresor. And so could happen that people are staring weird at you because it was like very straight and stuff, but somehow in my feelings, I don't know if it's right, but in my feelings, in my Gedanken, Erinnerungen, remember. Before it was much separated, and then in the 90s it became much more, even in the 2000s, came much more together and like not so separated and like more together, more acceptance and yeah.
But this is a really interesting point you made. So is DIY club culture more a queer thing, or is it also happening to the straight world? What can we have from this perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think like today in Berlin, like there's a really great like queer DIY club culture that is probably bigger than it ever has been. I don't know if I would assume, right? But I mean, also there's a great legacy in Berlin of these spaces, and I mean, yeah, I'm no historian, but people were pretty fucking homophobic in 1989 when the wall fell down, you know, and there was a big like fight for these spaces that I think Berlin did a lot, and club culture did a lot in that respect. You know, when the wider politics had like no interest in this whatsoever. So I think like today there's of course, I don't know, this event when you guys got your lovely award, well deserved. There's like a lot of collectives now who are representing queer communities, trans communities, diverse communities, and it's also just like really mixed too, right? Like it's like most of the collectives are mixed, I think.
No, but I also think like celebrating it, like living this awareness is an example, and nowadays also a must for straight clubs or what. It's like
So
you can't escape anymore, and that's a good thing.
Oh, that's a good thing. So that collectives push that awareness idea, so that we have a bit more institutional. Marum, you want to say something to this?
I guess like I imagine like awareness. There was always awareness, as in like people would look after each other. What I imagine is this. It was completely different from nowadays, because nowadays there's also a lot of knowledge that is become somehow commonalized. Like what I see is a bunch of collectives that have actually resources of harm reduction that did not exist because it was also like completely illegal to even like think about studying these substances, that now you have a lot of people and there's funding, like, you know, like there's drug testing, there's also a much bigger array of like substances that existed back in the days. I imagine people were taking maybe ecstasy and maybe not a lot more, and people didn't even know what were the consequences in the long run, which now we know. Now we have a lot of studies, we have a lot of research that give us a lot of knowledge. But yeah, you don't see a lot of clubs having awareness the same way small queer parties had maybe just before the pandemic it was started. I think only now like a bunch of bigger clubs are starting to have their own teams, and it became kind of a professionalized job over the past years.
In addition to that, I would say the first steps of awareness were mostly psych-care, where people took care of each other when it came to cases of overconsumption, but also, of course, in cases of heavy social interactions. And during the pandemic, where we faced a lot of social inequalities, I mean, it was a master example of our society, how different we were positioned, how different we were suffering under different circumstances, and we are still recovering from it. So
Yeah,
I wouldn't say it has only a bad outcome. So this kind of awareness about social inequalities, about representation, about privileges, is a big plus, and this is now more the definition of awareness for me, like this is my personal view of it, in combination, of course, with the physical well-being.
The time is ticking. We know this feeling, I guess.
Just one short thing about awareness, because I said we had also awareness in the 80s and the 90s, start fighting for our stuff, but the old lady, I sometimes I get students like calling me and want to make an interview and stuff, and they're talking in a way with so much more awareness. I'm still learning, you know. I'm too old, too old for this shit, and I'm still learning. I really have to take care, and that's what I mean about awareness nowadays. This is really a total, complete different level of awareness. So yeah.
So we are better, the younger.
You talked already about the role of like the lack of spaces we have in Berlin and all other big cities. So what role do vacant spaces and urban planning play in keeping DIY club culture alive?
Well, in a way, DIY club culture is about opportunism. You know, it's about taking advantage of, and when it becomes supported by the state, it does run the risk of being transformed or institutionalized. So, and there have been attempts in Berlin to try and bring those two things together, but I don't know how successful that really is. And I think when you talk about club culture, I mean, it's interesting to think about it on lots of other levels too, about performance, about making spaces, about building things, about all the other impacts it has on culture, you know. And it's interesting thinking about this question of, you know, how was it in the 90s and how is it now, and is it even relevant to make comparisons? It's a bit kind of reductive in a way, you know. But one of the interesting things I would say about that time, those spaces, is the impact it had on the people and what they went on to do. You know, so it's not like there's someone who's still running a club from the 90s and that's their career or something like that. I mean, it had so much influence on different people, and they went in different directions, and in creative and spatial and also music, all sorts of things. But the value of these places, and still will be the value of places like this, is a slow burner. You know, it's about what people do, what people take from that into their future lives. It's not about trying to just keep something the way it always is. It's accepting things change, but this is you know, your descriptions of running clubs and events and things like that, such amazing skill sets and experiences and things like that that are so valuable and so much more demanding and than a lot of really conventional ways people think about what is work and what is life and things like that. And this is where I see the real kind of value in these kinds of spaces. It's not about the space and keeping the space as such, but it's the legacy, if you like, of these kinds of spaces.
I really agree with that. Maybe some DIY spaces also disappeared because they oftentimes like can't sustain themselves through time, but the DIY spirit is definitely still so present in Berlin, and I like citing my life, like my journey. I'm not German. I came to Berlin because I knew there was this spirit, and this is the thing that attracted me, and this is the open door I saw in Berlin where I could like make into reality. I also really liked your sentence, Martin, like make a fantasy into reality. For me, DIY, for me, this space is totally about that, because it's really such a chance to be able to do that, like to make your vision like come true, and it's a great privilege, and it's definitely not a given. There are so many countries, there are so many cities where it's just not possible. The door is like closed, like because the conditions are like too hard to make that kind of things happen. So yeah, I would say the legacy is definitely there. I can keep going. Also, keep mentioning the paper you wrote. You also said that maybe like thinking too much in binary, like this era was like this and this era was like this, like or too much of distinction maybe doesn't make so much sense. I also noted down this parts of your paper where you say the distinctions between mainstream and subcultural, controlled, and indeterminate have become more nuanced over time, both in the spaces and the pluralism of those who use them. One example for Trésor. Trésor was founded by a group of friends. They found a space. They started throwing parties there, early 90s. Then they were evicted from their original space. There's a really good documentary on YouTube about that. I'm gonna give the reference at the end. But they were in a space in Leipziger Straße next to Potsdamer Platz for 14 years until 2005. Then they were evicted, also because the authorities, local authorities, didn't support them. The building was sold to real estate developer, like a classic shit in Berlin, and nowadays it's a empty luxury building. So they had to move to their current location. They opened only 2 years after, and what I wanted to say through that example is also that Trésor became an institution, became a brand, a business. I wouldn't say it's DIY today, but yeah, things change, projects change, DIY becomes professional also sometimes, and Jazz, you want to react?
Yeah, I have a question to this, because does this change what Elva just was saying? Does this change the whole vibe on the dance floor? Like, we see it also now that the dance floor changed. The people who go to a club are more like tourists who are coming. because they can afford it. The prices are super high. Corona plays also a role in this. What do you think about this, what Elvis said?
I'm thinking about my old professor. He said once times in a lecture that every subculture will be sooner or later taken over by the mainstream. And I thought a lot about this because, I'm now 31 years old, and I, through my teenager times and young adult times, I go through a lot of scenes, and each of these scenes, each of these subcultures were taken over by the mainstream, and now we also recognize attention to the DIY, to the club culture, to the nightlife. Politicians have recognition about this. There's a societal attention over this. And coming back to this, when we transform DIY collectives, events, venues into kind of a professional business, then maybe the dance floor could change, because there you have to look after the finances, and then maybe also your door selection can change. Maybe the way you advertising, how you speak to people, when you have even more financial or even less, more or less financial resources to attract people. So I think it has a big influence on the scene.
May I
Yeah, if I can just jump in there. I think it's very interesting what you're saying about subculture and how subcultures work, because in a way, subcultures are the cutting edge of cultural production. So then they get incorporated and, normalized, mainstreamed. But that doesn't make it less valuable what subcultures do. It's actually, and you're not saying that, I know you're not saying that, but it's almost like subcultures take contemporary conditions in life, things that haven't been figured out culturally in the way, and try and find ways of expressing them or working with them, or so it's really and then it's only normal that once that's happened, that becomes incorporated into mainstream culture in a way.
Yeah, because we have to, otherwise spaces like yours get weighted when you are not cooperating, when you are not attending to the mainstream, when you are not professionalizing at one point, when you are interesting for the society. You have to choose. Maybe this idea sooner or later will die because you are exhausted, because your lack of fundings, you have less of networkings, or will you choose the way of networking, cooperating, and also going more the way of I accept circumstances which weren't in the first steps kind of the way I was thinking to run the space. So this is kind of really interesting question, and I think a lot of subcultures and DIY collectives are asking themselves at sooner or later at one point this question, which direction we want to move. And if you decide to be a subculture and not to cooperating, then you have to deal with that as well.
Yeah, there's just one thing which reminds me, because which I always said, there's just one phrase, and for me, as all the things that I live is like professionality kills charm. So like, it is. The more professional it is, the more boring, the more
But what would help? What would help to don't do it in this way? Should the state fund give more fundings, and like the club commission doing this event every year where they give 10K to collectives or 5K? Do you think it's the solution?
I think that's always the question of the collective. It's like really, as you said, it's like you have to decide. You have to decide where you want to go. What is your DIY club culture? What is it for? Is it for you? Is it a safe space, or you want to be more a part of a movement, or you want to be open for the mainstream? So you really have. This is like individual. You have to decide. And or maybe do a connect more in between the DIYs.
What do you want to
Yeah, I guess like these spaces surviving is not enough. I think funding for these spaces, it definitely helps for, yeah, maybe like grassroots projects to experiment and have some freedom in a completely expensed out city. But yeah, I feel like it is nightlife as we wish it would be is also dying because people cannot afford to attend or to experiment or even have the time to go and experiment with new sounds and to I think that's what like Berlin had in the 80s and the 90s. And I see like, yeah, from my perspective, it's like if people cannot afford to go to a club, it doesn't matter if that club is DIY and has money to survive. If the people attending have to be rich and have jobs and are not really looking forward to kind of like experiment with culture.
So money is a problem, but money is also the solution. Right? I don't know.
I think one of the solution is yes, funding, but also the recognition that we are kind of a part of modern cultural heritage, that we need protection with special laws, that we need protection from raids, that we need also allies on the official political side, and also from our kind of big siblings in the mainstream club culture, which is also worth that. So it's, yeah, we need to interconnect, and also the protection of laws, I would say, next to the funding and visibility.
And housing rights.
And housing rights.
And maybe I just talked to Benny before. Maybe I'm too romantic and I'm too old for this shit, but I said I'm so tired of defending what we have, or defending what we have to protect, because in the 80s and in the 90s we took what we need, and I said, like, there's so many empty buildings, there are so many things we really have to go back to, like, take what we need, because it belongs to us, it's our city, so it's like really, move your asses.
I can just agree to that, actually. But unfortunately, the time is ticking again. And before we come to our last question, Elba wants to go on with the Menti results.
Yes, because the public participated. So let's take a look.
Public participated
at your results. Yeah. So the bigger it is, the more the word was given by different persons. So freedom is apparently the word that comes to the mind of most of the people when hearing DIY club culture. I think it's beautiful, yeah. And then we have a lot of words: still professional artwork, non-commercial, creativity, self-organized, chaos management. I suspect like some of our members too that filled this poll also. Experience money. Why? I don't. Oh, okay. Experience over money.
We love that.
Realize my own project community.
Yeah, it's fucking cold now. I think you can totally agree with me on this point. So I would like to ask, Albert, you want to just interrupt me? It's fine. If you want to say something? Okay. I would like to ask the final question before we also let you more maybe have a Q&A and ask our panelists some questions, because we have a really tight timetable today. So if we meet again in 10 years, and this question is for all of you, so please be short in your answers. If we will meet again in 10 years, will DIY still exist in Berlin? And if so, what it will look like? Who wants to start? You have 3 seconds. Gloria, maybe you.
So I don't know, because for me, like you know, at the beginning you said in the 2000s it started to be commercialized, the nightlife or the club life. I think it started a little later, but it began the big hype about Berlin. And So, and I always said already from the beginning, we have to, for this we have to pay hard. So, and it came like this, and the commercializing. But then I still trusted in Berlin will always resist. But fucking money always can destroy everything. So that is. But I still believe in Berlin. I still believe in the scene. I still believe in the people. So of course it will exist DIY. Just the way in 10 years, I have no fucking idea if it's under bridges or where it is. But
Or at
we
the
will
Späti.
be there.
Go to a party.
We
with
have been there.
Flugtaxi.
We will be there. We always will be
No.
there. Yeah.
Some optimism, but not too much. Yeah. Maybe, I mean, we can say a few words about Diskobabel, because are we gonna exist in 10 years? That's actually not sure. We are here for 3-4 years is more our perspective for now. But this whole, the land belongs to a private landlord. He eventually wants to build, like, you know, the usual shit that is profitable in Berlin. So yeah, 10 years is actually a long time for DIY spaces.
You know that the average time of a DIY club is 3 years. So we are actually longer than this. We should celebrate this tonight. But before, I would like to get your answers, maybe shortly, because we really run out of time. So who wants to? You want to say?
I wonder what my kids will be doing in 10 years. So I'll have to ask them that question.
Maybe yes. You can send this
Yeah.
back to us, and we
Yeah,
will show it.
Yeah, but it's
Next panel talk.
yeah, exactly.
We will invite them in 10 years, I guess.
Kids talk.
Marum?
I guess I would like to be optimistic and to believe that people will continue doing things. But at the same time, I also know that I've been in cities where, yeah, autonomous spaces have been completely decimated. So it's really in the hands of people to do things. If people will be able to do it, I struggle imagining, given like the conditions of nowadays. I think the city is so expensive, and I think this is a conversation we've been having for years. I wonder, where will the people have the time to do things outside of their work to create like this autonomous spaces? It's like maybe people will definitely be doing house parties, but yeah, I think DIY spaces, autonomous spaces, it's really in the hands of people to do it. And it's a bit like Gloria was saying, people need to do something, otherwise they will disappear. I don't think it's a given that they will always exist.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I think we are right now in a political climate kind of fear, and we are still not reaching the climax of the society collapse, I would say. Maybe this will happen, maybe not, we don't know. But what I'm truly sure about is that people are getting creative. People are getting creative in their movements, in their way of protesting, also in their way of community organizing. I mean, let's have a look at the Späti parties, and maybe in 10 years we will celebrate, I don't know, in a swimming pool. Oh, this also exists.
It
But
exists
you know,
already.
yeah, you know what I mean. So we will find ways, but yeah, it's quite challenging still. But we will find.
Now I'm really interested in your perspective.
I think, like, I mean, I moved here 20 years ago, and I was lucky to get at the tail end of cheap housing and security and not needing to earn money. And I don't know how you all who are a little bit younger do it, because somehow you're surviving and working jobs and doing a club, and this hopefully not burning out. But I think, like, in 10 years, yeah, I mean, as long as there's still young people who are coming here or from here and making this stuff happen, I mean, it's going to, of course, continue. But, like, if you look at New York, maybe not in so much in the club scene, but say in visual arts or something, the scene moves like outside of the center to different parts of the city. So you probably see that in Berlin more and more, that you'll have like like Marzahn now has a booming scene. There'll probably be a club out there that's really the best club in 10 years or something, you know. So I think we'll see like this kind of because of the segregation, gentrification, that we'll see things moving out of the center of the city. That's kind of going to be a given. How no one I knew ever lived outside the S-Bahn like ring, you know, and now it's just totally normal. Of course, we moved to Berlin today, yeah, you know.
So hopefully we will have the Deutschland ticket in 10 years.
Exactly, the Deutschland ticket. Also, you know,
maybe the €9 ticket will have a
There
comeback,
we
so
go,
we
yeah.
can reach the clubs then in Cottbus or something.
yeah, and also
Or in the Spreewald when it's dried out. Maybe I'm the comedian here, right? So before it gets totally crazy, we introduce the night. I would like to open this panel to, if you have some question for our panelists, this is now the space. Otherwise, we reach the end now. Not of this night.
Now or never.
So.
What's up? Okay. The question goes along the lines of, would you risk survival of alternative spaces for your values and what you stand for? Hear me out. So we all know how much struggle it is to run a space that is alternative. And we all know that we're like value driven, right? But we see that ownership structures really, really fuck us over. And the clubs that do survive are the ones who own their spaces, right? They're not struggling as much through COVID as others do. And that's the cultural legacy that remains. So these spaces kind of like, you know, they gave up a bit of their values for this commercialization. But is that really a problem when it comes to the survival of a culture?
Somebody wants to add something to this, maybe? Or it was just a statement, kind of, rather than a question.
No, the question is, would you sacrifice, like how much are you willing to sacrifice values for survival of the culture?
I would say. Wow, so dramatic with the feedback today. I think every good DIY space needs a heavy feedback. So. Okay. Could be a Hans Zimmer performance. No. So, back to your question. I would say I would not sacrifice it, but I would do compromises to save the community.
Yeah,
Because it makes no sense to step back, to lose the space, to lose your community and other collectives or people, no, not collectives, capitalists are taking over. And yeah, what we are doing then, yeah.
But I would also say it's fine to lose your space, like to some extent, because you can always start elsewhere, and it's not the end of everything.
Every end is a new beginning.
Exactly.
So is there another question from the audience or some statement? Then it's now the time.
I will kind of think out loud. So I was thinking one big difference between back in the days and today is also social media that I think played a big role in the boom of techno. And so, for example, the tourists that come here, they go to the big clubs and they think it's underground. And what if we manage to educate people about like how DIY space actually bring and how consuming it. I'm not saying it's bad to go to clubs, these big clubs, it's always nice, but at least to be aware that it's not what you think and this is not Berlin's underground culture and that you're not supporting it, then maybe through the education of these people, of the public in general, maybe we could, you know, survive a bit more. Because I feel like back in the days people were united through values and everything, and nowadays it's a bit more like superficial and about what you think it is more than what it is in reality. So I think for me the way would be through education to bring more people, and then with more people you have more money, but still you didn't choose to sacrifice your values or anything. You're just educated to, show what you are and what is your fight. That's more of a statement. But
It's completely fine. It's completely fine. If everyone wants to add something?
That's a great point.
Yeah,
I
I
love
like it actually.
Do you want to join our collective? Your boyfriend left, but you can come.
Well,
Sorry, Melis.
I think if there's some other, does somebody
Yeah.
wants to say something?
Also, we're staying here, so you can come to us after, talk
Yes.
to us. Should we close?
Yeah,
Wrap
then
up?
we should close the panel talk and just thank you for participating.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.